Hey everyone, in this video we are going to take a look at LXQT KWin version, which is another Garuda spin. And I want to thank Mustafab for turning me on to this desktop. This is really cool. Thanks a lot. That was really great because when I saw KWin, I didn't spot this in the beginning. So when I was looking through the downloads originally a few days ago or a week, whenever it was, I saw the LXQT spin, but I didn't notice the KWin after it. You know, when Mustafab, and I really hope I'm pronouncing your name right. Sorry if I didn't. But the KWin part of it, especially, I was attracted to because I love the Compositor. That's where you get your wobbly windows and all those other cool things. So really just had to take a look. I couldn't resist. And I actually got this running on a live machine right now. What I did was when I first evaluated this, I loaded it into a virtual machine using my KVM and had problems with it. And of course, that shouldn't be too surprising because on the website it does say that a virtual machine is not recommended. And with some other spins, I kind of got away with using a virtual machine. But in this one, I was having some unexpected results when I launched the live version and I had to change my resolution. What happened was that our bottom panel here would float up here in the middle of the screen. Not quite the middle, but right in this area. And so it would sit there and I couldn't get it down there. And the only way I could get it to go down was to close that completely and then open it back up, relaunch it. And then it would show up down here, but then it was off to the side. So I could never get that right. And even when I installed it into my virtual environment, it was still the same. That's probably not a problem with the distro. It's probably because I'm in a virtual environment. So that's when I decided to put it onto a live machine. And here we are. And so now I'm at this screen right here. Oh, and by the way, one more thing. NP, you are my 100th subscriber. And thank you so much for 100. Yeah, that's a big milestone. It is for me. I know the big fish out there are probably saying, 100? I have 1 million. Well, goody for you. But I like my 100. And so thank you very much. And moving right on, this is the first thing we get after the install. Because like I said, this is a fairly fresh install. All I did was add in some of my video casting software so I could continue on. So let's take a look. The first thing we get here after the install is welcome to Garuda Linux. Would you like to start the setup assistant to finish your installation? Yes, I think I would. Just kind of pop that down. I think we got some kind of setting in here that's set to make that go up there. So we'll kind of see what's up with that there. And so we'll just go with OK. Yeah, jumps back to it. So that must be like a setting of some sort. Maybe in the KWin scripts. Might have something to do with windowing or tiling or something. But that's all right. We'll let that go ahead and run. This setup assistant, what I've noticed in other releases from Garuda is that this setup assistant is really nice because here it sets up our mirror list. So I'm just going to say save our mirror list. And then it's going to bring up a question to ask to update the system. And I'm going to say yes. And after it does this, it's going to let me install some additional software, which I really like that option. I think that's a really nice touch. So I'm going to go ahead and let that run. And I'm going to say yes. And that's another thing I'm seeing here. It looks like this is going full screen all the way down, even covering the taskbar. It's kind of cool. I like that actually. Let's just jump into the LXQT settings. And I don't know, maybe it's a script. Oh, okay, we have Kite in here. Yeah, dynamic tiling script for KWin. Let me just turn that off for now. But yeah, dynamic tiling script, that's pretty cool, actually. But like I said, for the sake of smoothness and continuity, I'll just disable that. So now I believe that if I like shrink this down and then close it and open it back up, it should remember its size and position and all that, or size anyway. So yeah, okay. So we'll kind of go with that for now. And that's our shell. Cool, I'll just minimize that. Okay, and I'm back. What? What do you mean I'm back? Yeah, I know, that's kind of weird, right? Have a different shirt on? Well, it's actually a different day. I had some technical issues, and so I had to come back after it was fixed. And the technical issues had absolutely nothing to do with the desktop or the OS that I'm reviewing here. So that was totally unrelated. And now I'm going to pick up where I left off. I'm rebooted back into my LXQT KWin environment so we can kind of move on. Now, when I booted in, one thing you'll see is the Q terminal here drop down is drop down by default. And so that's kind of cool. I really like this drop down. Now, when you start up, it's kind of annoying that it's kind of dropped down in its position. So I'm going to just jump in the settings and turn that off. But I understand the logic for that. And I think it's because it's to let new users know that it's there. So when you launch your desktop, there it is. And you can kind of look at it and go, oh, I see the drop down by default. The drop down is activated using the F12 key. So that'll turn it on and off. That gives you quick access to your terminal. So I can see how that'll spoil me really fast. I like that. So I'm going to just go ahead. Now that I know that it exists, I'm just going to jump into my preferences here, select drop down, and then I'm going to uncheck this box. And then that way it won't pop up in the popped up position when I start up. So I'll go ahead and save that. Cool. So that's the deal with the drop-down Q terminal. And so here we are back at our welcome screen. We have our Garuda Assistant, which is really handy if you want to stay out of the console. I know some people are really intimidated by that, and it's just really a time saver. So here you can just kind of turn things on and off just with a checkbox. This is really wonderful. So here I turned on Samba support earlier, just for fun. That's really great how you can just, add your Samba SMB service, put your user in the share group and all that, turn on your sharing. It's all really effortless right here, just checkbox. I've had to configure this manually many times, and sometimes it's a headache. And if you want to hook into like a Windows domain or something, this really makes it effortless. So yeah, big applause for that. And then Bluetooth support. And then here you can add in your virtual managers such as VirtualBox or VirtMan. And I prefer Virtual Manager personally, so that's the one I checked. And then if you're more of a VirtualBox guy, then you would want to check this guy. Or leave them both unchecked if you don't even use it. And then here we have our input methods, which I think is really cool. For example, my wife would like having Asian fonts and the iBus. And what that would do if you check these two things is it would give you ability to use Pinyin. Pinyin is something that allows you to use a standard keyboard to write Chinese characters. So yeah, nice. And then here's your audio settings. By default, we got pulse audio support. I really like that they have the pipe wire option here. That's a really nice alternative, I think. So yeah, pipe wire, very cool. And then your ALSA and jack and all that. Very cool. Nice. Then you have your maintenance. Again, keeps you out of the terminal. If you're not a big fan of the terminal, you can refresh your mirror list right here. So it just kind of does the command for you. And then run your system update with a click of a button. Remove orphaned processes and things there. Files and so forth there. You can clear all your logs with a click of a button. Reinstall all your packages. Yeah, wow. So if for some reason you wanted to reinstall everything, just hit that button. It'll bring up a terminal. and ask you if you want to reinstall, and it will. Here, remove database lock. That's nice. Like if you type Pacman hyphen uppercase S, and then, you know, like Inkscape, for example, you want to install something, and then it says, I can't install because the database is locked. And sometimes that happens, you know, whatever reason. And so then you gotta, if you don't remember where that database location is, this makes it easy. You can just come in here, hit that button. It'll get rid of that lock file for you, and you can continue onward and upward and do your thing. Effortless. Saves you a trip to Google. Edit repository. So in here you can go in and edit your Pacman conf. So that makes it a lot easier. You don't have to remember where it's located. You can just get right in here. It opens up your editor here. I think it's probably running Nano, but I'm not sure. So you can just jump in here and edit. And that's cool. I really like that. And make your changes, and you're good to go. So if you're advanced enough to edit config files, there you go. And clear your package cache. Again, easy access. Saves you going to the terminal or trying to recall what that is, which I believe is sudo pacman uppercase S hyphen uppercase S CC. So this will do that for you. Apply new configs. Not quite sure what that is for, but I'm sure it's cool. But that's neat. Maybe this just applies to the things you did up here, or maybe it applies default settings, like maybe if your configs got hosed somehow, this apply new configs might be something different. Or it applies to changes that you made, like say here in your edit repositories. I'm not really sure, so yeah, I don't know. But that's, I'm sure, pretty handy. And then we got our BTRF settings, our ButterFS. That's what our drive is by default, partitioned in, formatted, or yeah, formatted. And then here's our settings for our high DPI, our guest user support. So we can turn that off right here if you don't want to have a guest user showing up at your login. So you can uncheck that, and that'll get rid of the guest. And then your privacy settings. So you can enable add guard DNS here. Cool. And your H block, which I'm not quite sure what that is. I remember when I was serving time for bank robbery, I used to live in H block. Nah, I'm kidding. So yeah, all right. We'll just jump out of there. And so yeah, that was our Garuda Assistant. And then we have our Garuda Settings Manager. And this is really handy if you want to do hardware configuration. You can do it all here. This is really, if you're familiar with Manjaro, this is very much like Manjaro, where you had your hardware configuration for your video and your network cards and all that right here. You can even do your dangerous configs and show all devices. So that's really nice. If you're having some kind of driver issue, you can auto install your drivers here. And then here you can change your kernel. Again, like Manjaro, kernel changing is a breeze right here. And I actually did that earlier, mainly just for fun. I didn't really have a real reason to do it other than just to say I did it. And it was really simple. All I did was hit install here, and then it installed the kernel. I restarted it, and I was running Linux Zen. So easy peasy. If you had to do that manually, that's a bit more work. Then here you can set in your language packages, user accounts. This is where you want to go if you want to like change your face icon or set one. All you would do is click that, and then you could select an image and then put in a face. And then here, of course, you would set your account type. You could change your password here, and you can add and remove. So if I didn't want this guest in here, I could remove that. Or if you want to add somebody, and then you could give them standard privileges if you didn't want them to mess around with your configs. So yeah, and I did that again. I got to remember to hit all settings and not quit. And here's where you would set your time and date. That's kind of more advanced. I mean, in your regular settings down here, you can tweak it really more towards your clock. Or you could, and I did it again. Or you could just simply go up here and right click on your clock and select configure. And I think you could do the same down here. Oh, and you can set it to, you're right here in your date and time. 24 hour, that's kind of neat. I like that. I kind of like the 24 hour. And then we have our keyboard settings here. So if you need to change your keyboard settings, that's the place to do it. And I keep clicking this quit. I gotta quit doing that, but to avoid having to keep going back in there, remember to hit all settings, and that takes you back here. And I'm probably the only one on the planet that does that, but see, I almost did it again. So yes, and the one reason I wanted to differentiate this, because for example, your user accounts, where you have these settings, these are pretty familiar, and in some other desktops, that's usually down here in your system settings. And by the way, I changed my icons earlier too, so that's why they look different all of a sudden. But anyways, if you go into your regular configuration center, you know, you're going to see this users and groups, and you might think that you're going to end up here, but you don't. You're actually going to be in this, which is different. This is where you're kind of creating and modifying your users and group settings. So this is a lot different. This is more closer to what you would be doing in a terminal, but this is kind of a GUI way of doing it. And so this is a lot different. So if you find yourself in your settings configuration manager and you're wanting to do this, but you get this instead, that's why. And I don't really know any other way to get to this other than through your Garuda settings, which you can also find here under System Tools. And then I think you just have to go into Welcome Center, because I didn't see it anywhere else. And it's probably in there by itself somewhere, but I'm just not sure where it is. Actually, we could probably do a search. So if I hit search here, you know, maybe we could probably just do a Garuda. Yeah, and there it is. Garuda Settings Manager, I believe, is where we want to be. It looks like there's 2 shortcuts for that. So if we hit that, then I think that's just going to put us in here. So yeah, that's another way if you don't want to go through the welcome screen. And I had 2 of those open. So that's that. And then we have our Garuda Gamer, which I already went over in a previous video, but really love this because you can set it up for gaming really nice. Your Steam here, Lutris. So yeah, if you're into gaming, definitely want to do that. Play on Linux, I think, is an excellent choice for installing gaming. And of course, you'd want to have Wine if you're going to run Windows games. And I would go definitely with the Proton as well, because Proton is Wine that's kind of pimped out for gaming. So it's kind of got the configs in there that you really want to have when you're gaming. And you can just go through tons of stuff here for gaming. And here's your emulators. Love these. In one of my previous videos, I installed MAME Arcade because I have a bunch of MAME ROMs and did a quick demo. And like I was saying earlier, if you check any of these boxes, it's going to install it right then and there. But if you installed something by mistake, just simply uncheck the box and it will automatically uninstall it, just like that. So cool. That's our gamer. And then here's our Network Assistant, which is really nice. If you need to set up your Wi-Fi or anything like that, it's maybe for some reason didn't come on by default, you can do it right here. And so you could just click that button and enable it. You can turn on airplane mode, Bluetooth, you can enable, disable it. Mine was disabled by default, so I went ahead and enabled that here because I have some Bluetooth headphones. And I also installed Blueberry just because I like it. And so that is that. And then we also have our boot options, which is really great. This really makes things simple. For example, when you're booting up, the menu kind of stays there for about 6 or 8 seconds. I forgot what the default was. I bumped that down to 1 because I just like a faster boot up, and I don't really need to get into the menu that often. But if I wanted to turn off that 1-second timer as soon as the menu pulls up, all I have to do is hit one of my arrow keys and that'll turn off the timer, and then I can just kind of do what I need to do if I have to tweak that menu. But those times are very few and far between, so I'd rather just have a quick boot. And that's where you can do it. Just hit that little minus and bump it down. And then you can set your themes here, your Garuda theme, if you want a different splash screen. So this is all nice, or if you want no splash screen. You can set a background here and put your own custom image. So all that is really simple. You don't have to do all the manual tweaking because it's kind of a done-for-you solution right here in the boot options. Really nice GUI. So loving that. And then of course we have our Partition Manager, time shift. So if you hose your system, you can go back to a previous version. Love that. Your system cleaner, so you can clean out all the crap. And you can also kind of look at your status. So if you hit that, it opens Stacer here, and you can kind of get an overall view. My CPU is a little high right now. Probably from my OBS studio. There we go. That's kind of more back to a reasonable baseline. Current memory usage, disk, and all that. And then you have all these other things that you can mess with. And I'm not real familiar with this app, but it looks like it's got really nice monitoring capabilities and stats. And I think one of these is a system monitor. You can see your services. You can turn them on and off. Nice. So yeah, very nice. And this is probably your actual cleaner, where you can clean out your cache, reports, logs, application, trash. Yeah. So you can kind of clean everything up in one fell swoop right here. I like it. Very nice. And then you can even tweak your startup applications. So that's really nice too. And we have our quick access. So this kind of gives you quick access to things, I think. Not sure really. Take a quick look. Okay, so yeah, I guess I'll do that. If nothing else, for the sake of finding out what this is. I'm not really sure what the quick access is, so that's kind of why I'm going for this. And if I was a Windows user, I would probably be afraid to do it, because usually when they say, hey, do this, and especially if it says recommended, then I know I'm going to get screwed if I say yes. So there we go. Quick access. I guess it's giving you like quick access to your different things. Screen recorder, audio recorder. Yeah. Wow. Whoops. Okay, looks like I recorded myself on the screen and saved it in videos. Wow, that's kind of neat. Okay, so that's what quick access is. It gives you kind of a quick screenshot, camera. Wow. Yeah, this is very cool. Turn on and off your microphone, brightness, rotate, on, off. Yeah, this is great. So that's the first time I'm looking at this. So, and volume control. Okay, so that's quick access. Cool. Now I know. And then, of course, your package manager, your add remove software we got here. And by default, this is something I like, because in most distros, if we go over here and I hit the preferences, then you can see that the AUR is activated by default. I didn't have to go in there and do that. And I like the fact that it's on by default. For me, since I have dual partitions, my home folder is my big partition, and it's on a separate partition from my actual Linux install. So I would normally change this build directory to my home folder, and I just create a temp folder in my home folder and then set it to that, because that way I'm not taking up extra space on my smaller drive, which is my Linux. So that would be one thing that personally I would change. And there we go. And we can hide our tray icon if there's no updates available. Normally it'll show up here when you get an update. So it is hidden at the moment. Very good. So I'm going to close out of this guy. And let's move on to our other menus. Oh, by the way, and here's our setup assistant. That's nice. That's what appears when you go into your desktop for the first time after you install. If for some reason you accidentally close that and you want to reopen it, you can just click the button here and you can get back into it. Setup assistant's really nice, because when you get into your desktop for the first time, it'll let you update your mirrors and so forth and run any system updates. And then after that, it will ask you if you want to update to your ultimate. And if you say yes, then it'll give you choices of applications that you can install. So if you want to install a bunch of things like VLC Player and OBS Studio, Blender, you can install all kinds of applications right then and there and just go through the steps, and you can get them all set up in one fell swoop instead of looking around for them and doing it one at a time. So it's a real time saver. It's a nice thing to have. I would definitely recommend going through the Setup Assistant in the beginning. And then once you're through the Setup Assistant, then you'll see them all in your menu. I like the menu down here. We have two menus here, of course. We got our more generic one up here on our top bar. And that's really nice for easy access. And then if you want a fancy looking one, you can click down here on your K-Smooth bar, I think it's called. And it really is smooth. But this menu is beautiful. I really like the look. It's quite gorgeous. So nice. And they also have a search. If you hit the search here, it brings it up here on top, and you even have quick access. And so you can do a search on anything. And like I said, I did Garuda, so it kind of gave me some quick options there to choose from. So you can find whatever app you need and click it right there, and you're good to go. And I like the fact that it saves it there in case you need to go back and refer to it later. Same here. If you go in here and you needed to find something like, I don't know, OBS Studio, you got access to it and you click it right there. And then you had to close it and you had to do something else. And then, oh, I need to go right back into OBS again, just straight back to it. And then, of course, take it out of your search, and then you're back to your regular menu. So, yes, I'm liking that too. All right. Let's take a quick look at our configuration center. Here we have all our stuff, and really our main things we would deal with is down here on the bottom on your system settings, at least related to your appearance anyways. Up here, this is more your LXQT KWin kind of related stuff, I think. These are all things more related right to the LXQt. And so you can adjust your color scheme here. Your icons theme you could quickly do here. And so these would kind of select your LXQt default icons, and then your default LXQt theming and all that. However, if you wanted to go farther with your look, then you would want to come down here to System Settings and hit LXQt KCM Appearance would be one area. And here you would kind of set your application styles here, your global theme here. And earlier I installed the Suite theme. So I just hit get new global themes, and then I just did a search up here for Suite and found it, and then I installed it. It's nice that you have this ability, just like in KDE Plasma, you can have access to your themes and icons and all that good stuff without having to manually go out to a website. Here you can set your color schemes for your links and text and buttons and all that. And then we have fonts, and by default I have the Noto Sans on there, 10 point. And here's where you can change your icons. This is where I set my candy icons. And again, get new icons, just hit that and found some icons. And so same way, just like on your Plasma. So like if I wanted to put in beauty line, like you have in the Dragonized version, I could just do a quick search, and there it is. Hit install, and I could change those to beauty line. Select use and close it, and then we have our beauty line right here. And I believe I would just select that and apply. And I'm not sure if that's going to show up right away in my K-Smooth bar. Yeah, I don't think it did, but it will eventually. For some reason that doesn't update on the fly with the icons. I'm not quite sure why, but yeah, not a big deal. So yes, and then up here you have your brightness settings, which is nice in case you're blinded by the light. Or the other way around, if it's too dark, you can adjust it there. Date and time, these are kind of more the familiar settings here for your date and time and your calendar and all that. So you can tweak it and set your time zone. And then your desktop settings, which you can also access by right-clicking and hitting Desktop Preferences. And then you can set your background here, turn your slideshow on and off. By default, that's on. And then your default settings. And by default, only the home folder was checked, but I added in the trash and computer just to make it look more fancy. Fancy schmancy. Then we have our desktop notifications, so you can kind of tweak that about how long you want them to show up and all that. So that's good. Here's where you do your file associations. If you needed to associate a specific file, like say a text file or something like CSS, and you want to open it in, here it would be Featherpad. If you wanted to default that to something else like Genie or something, this is where you would do it. And then your main applications like your web browser, email client, file manager, this is really cool. I mean, if you wanted to install, say, Dolphin and make that your default file manager, to do that manually, that's kind of a pain because it's kind of hard to do. At least I always thought it was. Here it's kind of a breeze. You just change it and point to it and it's all done. I like that. And we got our hardware configuration kernel, which is the same as what we saw in our Garuda Assistant. And I think that's where you'd want to do it here. I'm not sure that'll open from here. Yeah. So you want to do that inside your Garuda Assistant. And we have our monitor settings here. That's probably noteworthy, where you would set your resolution and so forth if you needed to change it. And your advanced settings. Nice. And then session settings. That's another one that's noteworthy. Here we have our startup stuff here. And so you can turn these on and off at startup. Set your main user directories if you want to change something, like maybe you want your music folder to be somewhere else, for example. And these are your auto start. So if you want to turn something off, like recently I installed Blueberry, but if I decided, you know what, I don't want that showing up here, then I can uncheck it right here. And of course you can add things too. So if you installed some app and you want that to show up at startup, just hit add and then just point to it. Give it a name and then either enter in the command if you know it or search for it and select it. And you'll have that in your startup. And then your environment settings for you more advanced users in case you needed to do some environment variables there. And so then we have our ConMan and we have our Bluetooth tweaks, our KWin settings. This one is probably the other most noteworthy one. We were in, again, you can set your Windows decorations here. And I installed Sweet Global Theme earlier, so I think I might just click that, actually. I like the sweet look. And again, get new Windows decorations where you can go find that. And then we have our Windows behavior where you can set your behavior. And I just kind of kept everything at default, happy with it all. And then we have our desktop effects. And these are our default settings. And this is where we get our cool stuff like our wobbly windows. And I'm really spoiled with the wobbly windows. I like that. When I go into other desktops and I hit and I move something, if it doesn't have that wobbly effect and transparency, it just feels weird. So I like that. And of course your other effects like fall apart, that's a cool effect. Hit apply. And then if you open something, any kind of window, and you close it, like you have superpowers, you know, it's just the feeling of power that you can just shatter that window. Like magic power of shatter, activate. Well, that's cool. I like that. And then of course you can turn things off too. If your resources are kind of stretched, you can turn off things that you really don't need, like, you know, your blur and fading pop-ups and what have you. And that'll kind of free up some resources if you're on a resource strapped machine. And then you have your screen edges. I'm going to just hit apply there. And I turned this off. That was enabled, I think. And to turn those edges off, if you don't want those on, all you got to do is hit the one that's highlighted and then select no action, and then that'll turn off your screen edges. Sometimes they can be kind of annoying, other times not. And I think this one was on too right here. And so I changed that to no action. And that's just me, you know. Then you got your virtual desktop. So here you can add more. By default, you got 2 desktops that you can switch back and forth here. And you can add as many as you want right here. And so that's kind of nice. And by default, we have 1 row. So that means they would go this way. But if you change that to 2 rows, then they would be stacked. You'd have 1 and 2, and then probably 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and so on. And then here's our compositor. This is what gives us all our beautiful effects and everything. But if for some reason you had to turn that off, uncheck that button. I like to change tearing prevention to never, because by default I think it's on automatic. And if it's not on never, then if you're running software like OBS Studio like I am, you get screen tearing. So I guess the automatic isn't really as automatic as you would think. So setting that to never will get rid of that screen tearing issue. And then keep Windows thumbnails. I cannot get those thumbnails really working, but some say if you set it to never, I mean always, then they'll work. But yeah, I've never really had any luck with running KWin by itself and seeing thumbnails, and I'm not really sure why. I mean, if you people out there know what the answer to that is, please chime in, because I'd like to know that. And what I mean by that is, like up here, like in this taskbar, if I were to move this taskbar down to the bottom, and then I added in my widgets here, went into add, and if I went down here and added in a task manager, for example, and I'll just stick that in there for fun. Then you got all these guys, and if that's on the bottom screen, if you kind of hover over that, then it shows a Windows preview of whatever you got open. So like, you know, let's say you're running a movie and then you open up your file manager, and you're in your file manager, but then you go over here and you hover over your VLC player, you can see the little movie playing in a thumbnail preview. And that's how it works on KDE. And that should work on KWin too, but it doesn't. And I don't know why. And I've Googled that and really haven't found any answers. So maybe I'm the only one in the world that cannot do that, or there could be some other reasonable explanation. I'm not sure. So like I said, if anybody's got an answer to that, please chime in. So onward and upward, task switcher. This is cool. Our default is Alt-Tab, and what the task switcher is, if I hit Alt and Tab, you can see all your different tabs. Now, when you hit Alt-Tab, you just have it there for a second, and then you can keep the Alt key held down, and then when you tap the Tab key, you can scroll through your different open windows and select them. So if I wanted to go over to this window, then I just let up on the Alt key, and there I am. Hit Alt-Tab again, and I can go back to where I was. Cool and groovy. And then here's our login screen settings. So if we want to change it to something, and here we have our suite. So that's nice, sweet. So I can change that there, and I think I'm going to apply that. All right, and then that'll change our login there. Yeah, that's a really nice, that's sweet. Pun totally intended. Oh, great. Gone ahead and done that. And then we have our print settings, of course, which I don't have anything installed at the moment. But that's where you can set up your printers, and here as well. And then we have our screen locking. So here's where you can do your settings for your screen locking, where you can turn it on and off. of course, and how long you want it to go for locking and all that. Pretty standard stuff. And then even your appearance here, you can go in and, you know, kind of tweak your settings for your screen locking and turn on slideshow for your background wallpaper and all that. So that's all good. And there you have it for all our settings and all that. Okay, and just a quick run through the menu here. Yeah, let's use the fancy schmancy one. Just because I think it looks cool. And so, like I said before, I ran the Setup Assistant, so I installed a bunch of my apps that I wanted to have in here as well. By default, we had, I think we had Code OSS in there by default, which is cool. That's a fork of Visual Studio Code. I believe it's a fork. And then we have Electron 9 and all that. I installed Qt Creator in the Setup Assistant. And then we have our graphics. And I installed in the Setup Assistant Blender and GIMP and Inkscape. And then the rest of these guys were in here by default, which is our screenshot utility, our image viewer, Shotwell, which I think is a screen capture utility as well, if I remember right. Scanlight, our scanning utility. And then under Internet, I installed Brave, and I think that was it. And the rest in here is all default. It was installed with the desktop. Under Multimedia, I installed DroidCam, Hypnotics, Kden Live, and OBS Studio. Also VLC Player. So I installed all those in the Setup Assistant, and everything else on here like Audacious and Lollipop. I think I also installed Olivia in the Setup Assistant. But all these other things are in here by default when you do the basic setup. Office, I installed only Office because I wanted to give that another try. I'm really impressed with the way only Office is moving. So that's definitely something I want to kind of look at a little closer. And then under settings, this is all really default. This is where you can find your Garuda Settings Manager and so forth, and other settings that you want quick access to. And that's also where you can find your add remove software if you want to open up your package manager. Then under System, we have all our good stuff here. Our Alacrity terminal and Conman setup for our connection, networking, Garuda Assistant options. These are the things that we see in the welcome screen. And of course, we can get to our welcome screen from here too. And so that's all good. And then we have HTOP, of course, and our KDE Partition Manager, which is a really nice partition manager. QTerminal. And so, yes, and SUSE Studio Image Writer. I love that image writer. That's probably my favorite image writer. So it's nice to see that in there by default. And then we have our utilities, which are all good in here. We have code is also mentioned in here again, Code OSS, and our Kvantum Manager, access to our K-Smooth Dock settings. So that's nice. Our File Manager, another reference to image writer. And then we have our sessions here, so we can go ahead and lock our screen or log out right from here, or reboot, shut down, and all that good stuff. And then finally our search window. And so we would click on that, and then it brings it up here, which is our KRunner, actually. Then we can go into KRunner and just bring that up. So that's really just a shortcut to KRunner. Very nice. I really like that. And then, of course, our standard menu over here also has search and all our good stuff. So you got both access. And so I think that's going to about cover it. Our multitasking view is kind of a shortcut, I think, to our task switcher, maybe. Don't think that's actually running. So then we have Speed Crunch. That's our calculator. Wow, that's a fancy calculator. looks nice. Okay. So I'm kind of looking at this for the first time here. Really just, there's our Audacious, our QBitTorrent. Text editor, which I think is Featherpad maybe. Yeah, I would say so. Yep, Featherpad, so nice. Okay, and our file manager and terminal. I gotta tell you, I am super impressed with this desktop. I think it gives me the best of both worlds. I get the coolness and the beauty of Plasma with our KWin compositor, and yet the lightness of LXQt. And I think it's a perfect marriage. Having LXQt with KWin, I can't think of a better combination. I am more than impressed with this desktop. I really gotta say. I think this is something I could see myself using as a daily driver. I really could. As impressed as I am with the Plasma desktop, this is something that I would be very happy running. I don't really see any problems with it at all. No real complaints. Now, to be realistic, any OS and any desktop that you're running, there's going to have some minor bug somewhere. Nothing is bug-free, but this is really impressive. I give it not only 1 thumb up, but 2 thumbs up. And so, yes, it does definitely get the Jack seal of approval. Love it. And thank you, Mustafab, for turning me on to this, because I probably wouldn't have noticed it for a long time if it wasn't for you. So thanks. And with that, I guess we'll wrap it up. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that thumbs up button and hit subscribe. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you in the next video.